Mercedes thought Ferrari was almost 6/10 behind in Austria. Then the GPS data told a completely different story. Ferrari was not using full power, not through the key acceleration zones, not with maximum electrical deployment, not with the full force of its new Austrian engine upgrade. And that should scare Mercedes more than any practice lap, because Ferrari arrived with a new Shell fuel blend, a reported 15 horsepower step, and a legal upgrade path designed to cut its power gap to Mercedes almost in half. But instead of revealing everything on Friday, Ferrari appeared to hide the real SF26. Early lifts, conservative mapping, controlled deployment, a car that looked beaten on the timing screen but dangerous in the data. And here is why this matters. Hamilton is only 41 points behind Antonelli. Mercedes has already suffered reliability problems. And if Ferrari was close while holding power back, then qualifying may not reveal a small improvement. It may reveal a title threat, because the most dangerous Ferrari in Austria was not the one Mercedes saw on Friday. It was the one still waiting to turn everything up. The first thing to understand is that Ferrari's Friday in Austria was designed to look ordinary. That is what made it so dangerous, because on the surface, nothing about the timing screen screamed panic for Mercedes. Kimi Antonelli was fastest. Mercedes still had the benchmark lap. Hamilton was behind. Leclerc was further behind. McLaren looked sharp. Verstappen was still close enough to stay in the conversation. If someone only looked at the classification, the conclusion was easy. Mercedes still had control. Ferrari still had work to do. The Austrian upgrade was not enough. But Formula One is not won by people who only read the timing screen. It is won by people who read what sits underneath it. The GPS traces, the throttle behavior, the deployment patterns, the speed profiles, the small moments where a driver lifts earlier than expected, where the engine does not deliver everything it could have delivered. That is where Ferrari's Friday stopped looking ordinary, because the data suggested Ferrari was not showing its full hand. Not in the key acceleration zones, not with full electrical deployment, not with the most aggressive use of the upgraded power unit. And that changed the entire meaning of the session. A car that is 6/10 behind while flat out is one thing. A car that is 6/10 behind while being managed is something completely different. That is the sentence Mercedes did not want to hear, because Ferrari had not arrived in Austria with a normal package. They had arrived with a power unit step, a new Shell fuel blend, a reported gain around 15 horsepower, a legal development opportunity earned through the new catch-up system. And according to the source material, that upgrade was expected to cut Ferrari's power deficit to Mercedes roughly in half. That is not a small development. That is a championship weapon if it works. But Ferrari did not need to prove it immediately. In fact, proving it immediately may have been the worst thing they could do, because Friday practice is not only about speed, it is about information control. Teams want data, but they do not want to give too much data away. They want to understand the tires, the cooling, the balance, the deployment, the long runs, the fuel loads, and how the car behaves across different conditions. But they also know every rival is watching. Mercedes is watching. McLaren is watching. Red Bull is watching. Every GPS trace becomes a clue. Every speed trap becomes a message. Every lift point becomes a question. So if Ferrari had shown the full power on Friday, Mercedes would have known exactly how dangerous the upgrade really was. They would have seen the straight line delta. They would have seen the deployment strength. They would have seen where Ferrari had improved. They would have known whether the gap was truly closing. Instead, Ferrari appeared to leave the paddock guessing. And guessing is uncomfortable when your championship lead is under pressure. That is why this block matters. Because the first real battle in Austria may not have happened on the track. It may have happened in the data room. Mercedes had the fastest lap. Ferrari may have had the hidden potential. Those are two very different types of power. One is visible, the other is psychological. And in Formula One, psychological pressure matters. If Mercedes believes Ferrari is still behind, it can approach qualifying with confidence. It can focus on its own execution. It can protect tires, manage cooling, and trust Antonelli to deliver. But if Mercedes suspects Ferrari has power in reserve, the whole weekend changes. Suddenly, the fastest Friday lap does not feel like proof. It feels like bait. Suddenly, Hamilton being almost 6/10 behind does not feel safe. It feels incomplete. Suddenly, Leclerc being further back does not end the discussion. It raises another question. How much of Ferrari's real performance was still hidden? That is where panic begins. Not dramatic panic. Not public panic. Quiet panic. The kind that appears when engineers compare traces and realize the rival car is not behaving like a car at full attack. The kind that appears when a team asks, why are they lifting there? Why are they deploying less there? Why is the speed trap gap not matching the lap time gap? Why does the Ferrari look slow in one reading, but suspiciously strong in another? That kind of panic does not need shouting. It needs spreadsheets. It needs debriefs. It needs people staring at the same lines until the uncomfortable pattern becomes impossible to ignore. And Ferrari had every reason to create that discomfort, because Hamilton is not far enough behind to be ignored. 41 points behind Antonelli is a serious gap, but it is not a dead championship. Not if Ferrari has a real engine step. Not if Mercedes keeps facing reliability questions. Not if McLaren takes points from Mercedes. Not if Verstappen is close enough to complicate the race. Not if Austria becomes the first weekend where Ferrari's power deficit begins to shrink in public. That is the key. Ferrari did not need to destroy Mercedes in practice. Ferrari only needed to prove, quietly, that the second half of the season might not look like the first. And the GPS data may have done exactly that, because the difference between struggling and sandbagging is intention. A struggling car cannot go faster. A sandbagging car chooses not to. From the outside, both can look similar. The lap time is not enough. That is why analysts dig deeper. They look at throttle. They look at deployment. They look at where the car gains and loses speed. They look at whether a driver is using the full length of the straight or lifting early. They look at whether the battery is being spent aggressively or saved. They look at whether the engine map matches a qualifying style attack or a conservative data run. And in Ferrari's case, the suspicion was that Friday was more conservative than the timing screen suggested. That is a dangerous accusation, but not because it implies cheating. It does not have to. This is not about Ferrari doing something illegal. The source clearly frames the upgrade as legal, developed through the allowed power unit route, with the fuel blend submitted and approved. The danger is that Ferrari may be using legal sandbagging as a weapon. That phrase matters. Legal sandbagging. It means running below full potential, not to break rules, but to control what rivals can learn. It means hiding enough performance to make Mercedes uncertain. It means turning practice into a mask. That is exactly the kind of thing great teams do. They do not reveal everything before they need to. They make rivals prepare for several possible versions of the same car. They force doubt into the decision-making process. And doubt can be worth lap time, because doubt affects preparation. If Mercedes does not know how much Ferrari has left, Mercedes has to choose how aggressive to be. Does it push harder and risk reliability? Does it run more cooling margin? Does it prioritize straight-line defense? Does it compromise corner balance to protect against a Ferrari that might suddenly be faster on the straights? Does it assume Hamilton can attack, or that Ferrari is bluffing? These are not simple questions. Each one costs attention. And in a championship fight, attention is limited. Ferrari's job is to make Mercedes think about Ferrari. Not just about Antonelli's lap. Not just about Russell's setup. Not just about McLaren's pace. Ferrari wants Mercedes to feel a threat that has not fully appeared yet. That is how you pull a dominant team out of comfort. This is especially powerful because Mercedes has not been invincible. Fast, yes. Dominant, yes. But not invincible. Reliability problems have already hurt them. Battery-related failures have already changed the mood around the team. When a fast car is also fragile, rivals do not need to be clearly faster every weekend. They need to be close enough to punish weakness. That is why Ferrari's hidden power matters so much. If Ferrari closes the gap, Mercedes' reliability issues become more expensive. A small problem no longer drops Mercedes into safety. It drops them into Hamilton's reach. A slightly conservative engine mode no longer protects a comfortable lead. It invites Ferrari pressure. A qualifying mistake no longer means starting just ahead of the threat. It may mean starting behind it. That is why the Austrian upgrade is not only technical, it is strategic. Ferrari is trying to change the cost of every Mercedes mistake. Earlier in the season, Mercedes had room. The W17 had superior exit speed. Ferrari looked like it lacked traction and deployment strength. Hamilton and Leclerc were behind, not by tiny margins, but by gaps that shaped the entire narrative. Mercedes was the team everyone measured against. Ferrari was the team trying to understand how to reach that level. But Austria suggested a shift, not a completed shift. Not proof that Ferrari had overtaken Mercedes. A shift in uncertainty. And uncertainty is the first stage of a comeback. Before a team can beat the leader consistently, It has to make the leader wonder. Ferrari may have achieved that with one practice day, because if Mercedes looked at the data and saw Ferrari leaving performance unused, then the real question became unavoidable. What happens when they stop hiding? This is where the new Shell fuel blend becomes so important. Fuel is not just fuel in Formula One. It is chemistry, combustion, efficiency, heat, and power delivery. A better fuel blend can unlock performance that the engine hardware could not fully access before. And because Ferrari's Austrian gain was reportedly tied to the Shell collaboration, this was not just a normal engine mode discussion. It was a sign that Ferrari's upgrade path had substance. A new blend, engine changes, improved energy from the internal combustion engine, a chance to reduce the Mercedes gap. That is enough to make every rival look closer. But the deeper threat is that Ferrari's Austria package may only be the first stage. A second power boost was reportedly planned later in the season. That means Mercedes could be facing not a single Ferrari strike, but a sequence. Austria first, more later. And that changes the championship psychology. If Hamilton closes the gap now, and Ferrari has another step coming, then Mercedes cannot simply protect its current advantage. It has to evolve faster than Ferrari catches. That is much harder, because the team in front usually wants predictability. Mercedes wants the season to remain stable. They want to control the championship gap. They want Ferrari improvements to be incremental, understandable, and manageable. Ferrari wants disruption. They want Mercedes to feel that the ground is moving. They want Austria to be the first sign that the old gap is not safe anymore. They want Hamilton to believe the title fight is alive. And they want Antonelli to feel pressure that he has not had to carry in the same way before. That is why the Hamilton factor is so central. A young championship leader can handle pressure, but Hamilton is a different kind of pressure. Hamilton knows how to hunt. He knows how to stretch a title fight. He knows how to turn a small technical gain into a psychological battle. If Ferrari gives him the power to stay close, he can make Mercedes uncomfortable in ways a less experienced driver might not. He can force strategic doubt. He can manage tires while staying within striking distance. He can recognize when Mercedes is protecting reliability. He can make the leader think about the past, the present, and the future all at once. That is what Mercedes does not want.